Hello everybody. So today I want to check in on MSTR. I believe we are in the calm before the hurricane. Hurricane season is coming up, and this is the period of calm before the hurricane. Yesterday's performance of MSTR was not good. It dropped much more than Bitcoin. And everybody let me know in the comment section all over. Today's MSTR performance is actually better than Bitcoin. Nobody lets you know that. So just keep in mind, people are angry when things don't go their way. When things recover and work again, people don't let you know. This is classic prospect theory. This is classic pain hurts more than gains. If you lose $1, you're going to have much more pain than the pleasure you will get from making $1. And so the market is being very emotional right now. But there's nothing you can do about this madness. Bitcoin is very weak. Bitcoin has been trading at 110 plus or minus 200 all day. Like Bitcoin is very weak. Bitcoin is not moving. Bitcoin is manipulated by the Binances of the world and over hyper liquid and over leverage, algos that want to go ahead and take, perpetual prefers. Crypto world is wild. It is still a little wild. It's not regulated, and we have Bitcoin just not doing much. And if Bitcoin doesn't do much, MSTR is not going to do much. And if you add the weakness on Bitcoin, in addition to the current weakness in the market right now, this is early September. Early September is even worse than August as far as being no good for stocks. September historically is weak for both Bitcoin and stocks, both Bitcoin and stocks. In many ways, this is an end of summer bear market, right? Probably we gotta have to wait until the final weeks or the final week of September before we see some move. We are in a mini bear market. Mini bear markets are meant for building positions. It's not when there's hype that you want to add to these positions. You want to add to these positions when everybody's complaining, when everybody's fearful. And yeah, I suppose if you look at the MNAV at strategytracker.com, by the way, kudos to them for that website. I like that website a lot. But yeah, I suppose the MNAV has slightly dropped to another all-time low. But this is so slight. This is so minor. We are slightly lower than the last time I covered it. So we kept going down a little bit, but still roughly flat. MNAV right now for strategy is a 1.49. 1.49 is just fine. There's a lot of crypto treasury companies right now that are not holding up so well, right? Like BMNR or Upexi, right? People are starting to realize that Bitcoin is in a league of its own when it comes to collecting the MNAV, and MSTR itself is in a league of its own compared to all of the other treasury companies. Yes, sure, I suppose the MNAV has dropped just a tad more compared to a few days ago, but this is nowhere near a catastrophe, and this is just that it's just a weak period for stocks right now. The stock market is not doing much, but if you look at the underlying, anything that has to do with growth is being just entirely sold off for frankly sometimes stupid reasons or silly reasons. Like I was looking at Duolingo earlier, like the stock has sold off like crazy. AppLovin, another stock that has sold off like crazy. So many stocks have sold off. This is just a mini bear in the middle of the bull market. We're having a mini bear, and so bears are for building positions. Bears are for knowing what you own, and all we do is wait. Macro punctuates this wait. Tomorrow, jobs data, another big macro day, but all we do is wait for that one day, and that one day, of course, is September 18, September 17, that's Wednesday, when we have the Fed meeting and the rate cut should be announced. The rates will drop. If the rates drop, that means much more liquidity is going to come into the system. We may get QE. There's been stealth QE, but we may get more outright QE. But more importantly, it's not about the 25 basis point. It's about the rate cutting cycle, which is going to start, which is going to begin. And so right now, MSTR makes money by printing printing MSTR common shares. That is how we make money right now of MSTR. This is how the Bitcoin dollar gain is created. We are printing each dollar share for each dollar amount worth of share, $1 worth of share, we're printing it for $1.49. So this is exactly 33% margin. Every time we mint one new share of MSTR, strategy makes 33% margin on that minting. This is still very, very good for something where the demand is very high. The demand for the equity is very high. The demand for the preferred right now is not that high. But the question is, how big will that demand when the rate cutting cycle begins and accelerates? And my guess is that that demand is going to turn on. There will be a lot of demand. If you look at Stretch, and Stretch has been their most successful launch of a preferred so far. Out of the 4 preferred, Stretch has been the most successful. And you can see, right, yesterday we were at 98.43 at one point, okay? 98.43. Stretch is going to be game. We're going to be able to issue Stretch preferred as soon as we reach 99 or above. We are almost there. We just need a little patience. And that patience is we have to wait until the rate cuts, essentially. So we need a little patience, and then once we reach a 99 plus on Stretch, we can expect a lot of printing of these shares. And the question is, how much are we going to sell? Well, if the IPO is any indication, there's going to be a lot of very high demand for that product. But I do want to say that even though it looks people are upset, and so it kind of adds to the grimness. People don't feel good about strategy. Let me show you some other stocks, right? Let's show some other stocks, right? Strategy past month is down 16%. Frankly, nothing for this type of stocks that's covered on this channel, nothing for me. This is less than HIMS, right? HIMS was down way more than that. You can see Metaplanet in many ways is more of a type of stock that I would be more inclined to cover on this channel. Metaplanet, minus 30% over the past month. A little less boring, right? A little less boring. Smarter Web Company, more on the risk curve, minus 48% of the past month, right? Even better. I would say if you compare strategy to say Smarter Web or strategy to Metaplanet, you got to realize that people have had the narrative of you need to sell strategy to go into the faster horse. This narrative has been going on for months, right? So imagine you did that 30 days ago. Imagine 30 days ago you switched from strategy to Smarter Web because you thought Smarter Web was going to be the faster horse. Yeah, Smarter Web is probably gonna be a faster horse at some point, but MSTR is always, in my view, going to be the blue chip in the sector. By a wide margin, is going to be the blue chip in the sector. And so that's why I'm not selling my MSTR. Even if MNAV gets to 1.2 or 1.1, I am not selling my MSTR because I know we are collecting that margin on printing MSTR shares. Right now at a 1.5 MNAV, every MSTR share that we do, we collect 33% worth of margin. This is beautiful. Also, I feel great about knowing that the market seems to grant some form of a margin of safety, and we see this even if you look at Upexi or DeFi Dev, right? DFDV. You can see these companies trade a little bit below 1. I mean for Upexi, but even like in the worst case scenario, in the worst crypto I like Solana, but I'm just saying, assuming you're Bitcoin maxi and you don't like Solana for some reason, you still have assets that trade at like a 0.9. Long-winded way to say that I think these assets are going to have a very hard time trading much below 1. Maybe 0.9 is the max. And my case in point here is looking at Mara. Sorry about it. Mara is a stock that I own. You see Mara is back at $15. Mara is back at 1.008. It's tough for me to imagine them getting much lower unless we get like a really pronounced bear market, and even then, At least right now, I don't see it coming. At least right now. And so this is a new standard to me. This seems like a new standard to me. So we have that floor in a 1. So what does that tell you? Well, that means that MSTR's kind of margin of safety is look out about 30% below where it is, which means that compared to when we started buying the stock on this channel, we're still well above a 10x, and you're still well locked a 10x, even if MSTR were to drop another 30%. And so no, I'm not selling that stock. I'm not paying the capital gains. I'm not rotating. This is the blue chip, and blue chips, they're anchors to the portfolio. They are wonderful assets in my view. CleanSpark too. I mean, if you want to learn about value of despair and what a value of despair type stock is, and you complain about MSTR being a value of despair, I mean, have a thought for CleanSpark, right? CleanSpark has been much more of a value of despair than MSTR, and it's been one of the most frustrating stock to own. And of course, to be a good investor, in my view, you have to be comfortable owning these stocks that do nothing for years, because you can't predict the pop. You cannot predict when they will do a multiple X times your money. You just can't predict, and it can happen so fast, right? Look at HIMS the past 2 days. Look at the outstanding performance of HIMS over the past 2 days. How would you have predicted? How could you possibly predict that the squeeze was going to happen yesterday and today? Nobody can predict that. That's why I'm just happy sitting on my hands and waiting. September, the first 2 weeks of September, are going to be meant for waiting as far as I'm concerned. And the plan, you know how strategy works. I keep saying on this channel, today I'm not using the black hole analogy. Today I'm not using the siphon analogy. Today I'm using the hurricane analogy. So what does the hurricane do? Well, it sucks capital in, right? Imagine you're in the eye of the hurricane, and I don't know, you're getting sucked into the hurricane. That's kind of the way that I view MSTR. How does MSTR do it? MSTR's largest hurricane right now is the common. It's a hurricane in the equity market, right? It sucks in capital, that buys the common, takes that capital, puts it straight into Bitcoin, pumps it into Bitcoin, and then you can see this is the current size of Bitcoin, that little orange rectangle right there. And every time capital is sucked in from equity to Bitcoin and growing the size of Bitcoin, of course, the magic of MSTR is that this is a one-way street. This is a one-way street. And I remember seeing people saying that MSTR should sell Bitcoin. I was flabbergasted. I could not believe it. This like undermines the entire thesis. The entire thesis is that it's a siphon, it's a hurricane, it's only one way. It's only one-way street. Capital flowing through the main product of strategy, which is MSTR common shares. That's one way, and that capital goes to Bitcoin. And then you have the preferred. The preferred go after the bond market. The bond market, well, it depends on the season, but it hasn't been doing too well. And sometimes people get excited. Oh, the 30-year is above 5%, and somehow people are supposed to be excited, but that's only because they don't know that, for example, Stretch yields 10% now, right? Stride yields almost 12%, right? Strike is 8% plus Bitcoin upside. The market is not familiar about these assets. It doesn't know these assets. And so the question is, I don't follow bond channels. I don't follow FIRE channel, financial independence, retire early channels. But in my view, any combination of these preferred are so attractive to anybody who's into the income investing type of stuff. But, Bitcoiners are not income investors. Bitcoiners understand the buy, borrow, die method. They understand that you need to borrow against the assets. But nonetheless, as these assets mature, in my view, they will become more and more attractive, especially to bond buyers. But this is not the preferred era yet. We are not in that era yet. This is the common ATM era. I've said this before. I keep saying it. There is still tons of demand for the common, and apparently by tons, I mean $300 to $400 million a week worth of demand. And remember, we earn 30% of that, right? We earn 30%. So we could be making BTC dollar gain in amount of something like 150 million a week. And so look at the value of MSTR shares beyond the Bitcoin. Take the market cap of MSTR, remove all of the Bitcoin that they have, and then you have kind of an extrinsic value in strategy, kind of like what the market grants it above. And you take that, you use that at the price, and then you do 150 million times 52, and you calculate your PE, and you'll see your PE is between a 2 and a 3, depending on the season. Pseudo PE, right? And an economic PE, not a gap accounting PE, but nonetheless, this stock is just too cheap. And so I am sitting there and just receiving your comments, complaining, but I'm not complaining. And frankly, the manufactured hype about the S&P 500 inclusion, I understand engagement farming, and engagement farming is great, and hopefully I do it better with my hurricane graphic, calm before the hurricane. But to me, this was never going to happen. I don't understand why people hype this up. Why would people hype this up? I frankly don't understand. To me, it's very obvious that it won't happen. There's a lot of loud voices everywhere, and I think they do it for the clicks. But you're setting yourself up for disappointment if you have people who are buying MSTR because they think it's going to be, S&P 500 included. It's setting yourself up for FUD over the weekend when we find out that when a lot of people find out that they actually have to go for a geriatric committee, and that committee has to approve MSTR and Bitcoin. I mean, what are the odds we get through that committee? I hope I'm wrong, because of course, if that were to happen, the stock would pop, 20-30%. I hope I'm wrong. And in fact, if I'm wrong, I promise to never use the word geriatric again. I know a lot of people don't like when I use that word. So I promise to never use this word again if I'm wrong. But my guess is that I'm not going to be wrong. And so get ready for a weekend of people complaining, saying, oh, it's over for MSTR because they didn't get an S&P 500 inclusion. And I don't know who started this hype. But to me, this is clear. If Tesla got something like 4 years late into the S&P 500 committee, how do you think a company who's again disrupting an entire industry, just like Tesla did with electric vehicle, introducing that idea? What do you think MSTR has a shot of doing? I don't see that at all. So, anyways, the conclusion is, folks, there's no news. It's all so boring. Bitcoin is boring. The market has been boring for more than a month now. People are upset at the market being so boring. Stocks are doing nothing. Portfolios, any diversified growth stock portfolio. I don't know about your portfolio, but my diversified growth stock portfolio has been flat for 5 or 6 weeks. And it's just the nature of the game. There are just periods of the year that are just better taken off and better go on vacation, right? It's kind of my take on this, and so let's take the week off. Let's take next week off. I won't take it off because I'm doing this YouTube thing. But if I was not having to do YouTube and videos, I would definitely take it off and not make videos. But I'll keep making videos. But anyways, this is hopefully this reassures you as to where we are. And I mean, my conviction in this stock is second to none. This is my number one position, and even if it drops another 20-30%, it's still gonna be my number one position, and I'm not selling it. So anyways, this is your edge. The ability to endure the pain, right now is the edge of the investors, and that's how big wins happen. Is if you're able to endure that pain. And of course, as always, the market can remain silly, can remain irrational longer than you stay solvent. So as always, careful with the derivatives. Careful with the options, careful with the ETFs built on top of that. That's when you can get wipeout risk and you can't really recover. But if you just own straight equity, like I do, life is good. So anyways, this is not investment advice, not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on X, follow me on Patreon. Thank you for watching and have a wonderful, wonderful day.